All right, strap in, everyone. We're going deep on this one. We're tackling the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report, the one for 2025.
Oh, this is a big one.
It is. Tons of data, all those predictions. But don't worry, we've gone through it all.
Yeah, we've distilled it down.
Distilled it, exactly. So consider this your guide to what jobs, what skills are going to be the hot ones in the next few years, and how the world is getting ready for, well, this massive shift in the workplace.
Yeah, and what I think is really cool is the report, they actually went straight to the source, They surveyed over 1,000 employers.
Oh, wow.
Representing a whopping 14 million workers globally.
That's huge.
Yeah, so it's like we're getting a sneak peek right into the minds of the people who are, well, they're actually shaping the future of work.
Exactly. And they're not just looking at technology, right? I mean, obviously, that's a big, big factor. But this report, it goes deep. It digs into climate change. It digs into economic shifts. You've got demographics, geopolitics even.
Yeah.
And how all of these forces are they're all tangled up together.
Yeah, like creating roadblocks, but also opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about understanding, how these global forces are kind of interwoven and how they're painting, I guess, a really dynamic picture of what the job market's going to look like. It's like
a tapestry, yeah.
Yeah, like a tapestry. Each thread is kind of influencing the whole pattern.
I like that. So let's start with tech, right? The report predicts that broadening digital access, that's going to be the biggest, most transformative trend, followed by AI and automation, which, I don't think that's a huge surprise to anyone.
I mean, not at first glance, but when you think about it, broadening digital access, that's the foundation for everything else.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's the thing that unlocks the potential of AI, robotics, you name it, all of those tech advancements, because now they can reach more people, more industries all across the world.
I see. So it's like building a highway system.
Exactly. A highway for innovation.
For innovation, yeah. Okay. But then it gets interesting, right? Because the report emphasizes that.
Yeah.
Technology, well, it's a double-edged sword.
It is.
So on the one hand, it's creating millions of jobs, but on the other hand, it's displacing millions of jobs too.
Yeah, and it's not just about, learning to code anymore. It's about learning how to work alongside AI.
Right.
And how to really thrive in this world that's becoming more digital every day.
Yeah, you really have to figure out how to navigate it all. So that brings us to what they call the skills paradox, right? Where the fastest growing jobs, they are all tech heavy. Your big data specialists, fintech engineers, AI, everyone's talking about AI.
All the AI gurus.
Yeah, all the AI gurus, exactly. But here's the thing. Employers, they're not just looking for these tech wizards.
Yeah.
They're really emphasizing what they call human-centered skills. Things like creativity, resilience, flexibility, even like environmental awareness.
Yeah, those are the things that AI, well, at least for now, can't really replicate.
Yeah, the things that make us human. So it's all about this balance.
Bringing the sweet spot.
Right, the sweet spot. So being tech savvy, yes, that's great, but you also need to be adaptable. You need to be a problem solver, and you need to kind of understand the broader impact of your work.
You need to be well-rounded, and that leads to this question that it's a bit concerning. Are our education systems and our training programs, are they keeping up?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah,
because the report, they highlight this real concern that some workers, especially those who don't have access to those upskilling opportunities, they could be left behind.
Left behind, yeah.
And that's a gap that we need to bridge if we want a future of work that's truly inclusive.
Yeah, that's a really critical point. We're definitely going to circle back to that whole upskilling, reskilling thing later on. But before we get there, I'm curious about this green wave that the report keeps mentioning. Apparently, climate change, mitigation, and adaptation are having a huge impact on the job market.
Yeah, and it's not just hype. It's real data backing it up.
Oh, wow.
Green jobs are outpacing overall hiring trends.
Really?
Yeah, and that's a huge signal that there's a shift happening, a big shift in the global economy. Think about it. To hit net zero emissions by 2050, which is what a lot of governments and corporations are aiming for, we're going to need to invest trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars in green infrastructure, renewable energy, sustainable agriculture. I mean, this isn't just a trend. It's a whole restructuring.
Of how we work, how we live.
Of how we live and work.
So we're talking about a big demand for for renewable energy engineers, environmental specialists, even farm workers going to have to adapt. And this isn't just in developed countries, right? This is global.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a global phenomenon.
So how does that look different in different places?
Well, the report highlights how, different regions are experiencing this green transition in different ways, and it's all shaped by their resources, by their industries, by their climate challenges that are specific to that region.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, for instance, in areas that rely heavily on fossil fuels, that transition, it's going to be more complex, and it's going to require a lot of investment in retraining and reskilling programs to help people adapt.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
It is a big one.
Okay, so let's shift gears for a minute. Let's talk about global demographics because the report really emphasizes how, demographics are this major force that's shaping the job market. And I mean, I can see that, especially with, we've got aging populations in many developed countries.
Right, and it's fascinating because the report highlights these two contrasting demographic trends that are happening at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
So you've got the aging populations in places like Europe, Japan, North America.
Yeah.
And that's leading to this surge in demand for, healthcare professionals.
Right. Of course.
But also for talent management experts.
Oh,
I
interesting.
think people who can help companies navigate the challenges of having a workforce that's getting older.
So managing that transition.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's one trend. What's the other one?
At the same time, you have regions with these booming young populations, growing really rapidly. And that puts a strain on education systems.
That makes sense.
Creates this huge need for upskilling initiatives.
So it's like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that the future of work, it's not one size fits all. Different regions face their own unique challenges and opportunities depending on what their demographics look like.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've got tech, we've got climate change, we've got demographics, and then the report throws in another curveball, geopolitics.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, all the geopolitical fragmentation, all the tension, that's adding another layer of complexity to everything.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. Think about all the cyber attacks that are happening.
Yeah.
All the debates about data privacy, the shifting alliances between nations.
That's a lot.
All of these geopolitical tensions, they're spilling over into the job market.
Wow.
And it's creating this demand, not just for cybersecurity experts, but also for people who can bridge those divides.
So like diplomats.
Kind of, yeah. We need leaders, influencers, people who can navigate this world that's becoming more and more fractured.
And build trust.
And build trust across different cultures, across different political divides.
So it's not just about tech skills anymore.
No.
It's about diplomacy, communication, understanding other perspectives. It's almost like we need like a new generation of peacemakers, but in the workplace.
Exactly, yeah. And the ability to build consensus, navigate cultural nuances, communicate across different worldviews, that's becoming really valuable.
I like that.
And that's not something you learn from a textbook. It takes empathy. It takes cultural intelligence. It takes a deep understanding of the world.
And how it all fits together.
Yeah.
It sounds like the world's getting, well, more volatile, more unpredictable. And I imagine that has a huge impact on the kind of skills that companies are looking for, right?
Absolutely. In this kind of environment, resilience, adaptability, the ability to learn quickly, those become really, really important.
Because you have to react to the unexpected.
Exactly. Yeah. You need to be able to pivot. You need to be able to adjust your sails.
Right.
Navigate uncharted waters.
Okay, so it's not just what you know, but how you learn, how you adapt.
Right.
I'm sensing a theme here.
There's definitely a pattern emerging. I think the report is pointing us towards a future where the skills that are most valuable, they're not just technical.
Right.
They're the skills that help people thrive
Mm-hmm.
in complexity, in ambiguity, in this world of constant change. It's about becoming
A master navigator.
a master navigator in the
Mhm.
ever-shifting world of work. And this is where it gets granular, because the report breaks down these trends, these global trends, by regions, by industries.
Oh, so it's not just big picture stuff.
No, it's like
Yeah.
we're zooming in, going from that world map to like street view,
Oh, I like that.
getting really specific.
So, okay, so you're saying the future of work, say in North America, it's going to look different than the future of work in, I don't know, Southeast Asia?
Exactly, because each region, they face different challenges. They've got different opportunities depending on, their level of economic development, demographics, access to technology, even like cultural attitudes towards work.
Right, right. It's all connected. Okay, but before we dive into all the specifics, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, upskilling and reskilling.
Yeah,
Because the report really hammers that home, right?
it
Like
does.
that's a key strategy for navigating all these changes. But what does that actually look like?
Oh, it's not as simple as just, taking a few online courses or learning a new software program. It's a bigger shift.
Hmm.
A shift in mindset. It's about embracing lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning, yeah.
It's about, being curious about new knowledge, new skills, and being willing to adapt and evolve throughout your entire career. Think of it like upgrading your own internal software.
Keeping up with the updates.
Exactly. Keeping up with the updates so you can keep pace with, everything that's changing in the
So
workplace.
it's not just about the skills themselves, but it's the approach,
A mindset.
the mindset, yeah.
Yeah, and this is where I think the report has some really interesting stuff. It highlights all these different upskilling and reskilling initiatives that are already happening,
Like what?
like employer-sponsored training
Yeah.
programs,
Yeah.
government-funded initiatives.
Right.
You've got your online learning platforms, all kinds of
So
things.
so it's coming from all sides.
It's multifaceted.
Okay, but let's be real, not everyone has access to these kinds of opportunities, right?
Right.
I mean, some people, they're juggling multiple jobs.
Yeah.
Maybe they have family responsibilities, or they don't have the resources to invest in their own development.
Yeah. That's a huge issue.
So how do we make sure that upskilling and reskilling don't just benefit the people who are already privileged?
That's a key point, and the report they address it. They actually talk about, the inequalities. They emphasize that we need to have targeted interventions, especially for the people who are most at risk of being left behind.
So like specific programs.
Yeah, programs for low-income workers, people who are in industries that are declining, or people who, they face barriers to education and training,
Right, so making it more accessible.
making it more inclusive.
Inclusive, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just about access, it's about the support systems.
Okay.
Things like affordable childcare,
Yeah.
transportation,
Right.
maybe there's language barriers.
Well, of course, yeah.
We need to address all of that.
So it's not just about teaching new skills.
No.
It's about addressing the root causes of inequality.
Yeah, the systemic barriers.
Okay, yeah, that's a really important point. So it's a more holistic approach.
Holistic, and it's about recognizing that upskilling, reskilling, it's not just an individual responsibility. Right.
It's about creating a more just and equitable society.
Yeah, where everyone has the opportunity.
Exactly. Everyone has the opportunity to thrive in the future of work.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But let's zoom out for a second and look at some of those specific trends that the report highlights. One that really jumped out at me was the increasing demand for, what do they call them, green skills?
The green wave field.
The green wave, right.
Yeah, and as the world, transitions to a more sustainable economy, the demand for people who can, design, build, and operate green technologies, green infrastructure, it's skyrocketing.
So give me some examples. What kind of jobs are we talking about?
So you've got your renewable energy engineers, you've got specialists in sustainable agriculture, circular economy experts, data scientists who can help companies track their environmental footprint.
Okay, so it's not just about, saving the planet.
Right.
It's about creating jobs. Exactly. New jobs, new economic opportunities. And what's really cool is that these green jobs, a lot of them, they pay well.
Oh, really?
They offer good benefits because they require, a lot of skill, a lot of expertise. So it's a win-win.
Win-win for the environment and for the economy.
Exactly.
Okay, that's good news. But, I mean, let's be honest, not everyone is thrilled about this green transition.
Right.
There are some industries, some workers who are, well, they're concerned about job losses,
Of course.
especially in those sectors that rely on fossil fuels.
Yeah, and the report acknowledges that. They know that this transition is going to be disruptive
Right.
and that not every job can be replaced.
Yeah.
But they also highlight the potential.
Okay.
The potential for creating new opportunities in these new emerging green industries.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we need a just transition.
Job transition. Oh, right.
One that provides support and resources for the people who might be displaced.
Mhm.
But also invest in retraining, invest in reskilling to help people get the skills they need for this for this green autonomy.
So finding that balance between like ambition and compassion.
Right. Yeah.
Like we want to push forward with innovation,
Yeah.
but we don't want to leave people behind.
And recognizing that this isn't just an economic imperative, it's a moral one too.
It is, yeah.
We have a responsibility to create a more sustainable future for ourselves, for future generations.
For everyone, yeah.
But also make sure that no one gets left behind in the process.
Yeah, that's really important. Okay, so let's shift gears again, shall we?
Sure.
Let's talk about AI and automation, because this is another big trend that the report talks about. And honestly, this is a topic that tends to generate a lot of anxiety, right?
It does.
People are worried about robots taking over our jobs,
Mhm.
making humans obsolete.
Right. The robots are coming for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how does the report approach this whole, robots versus humans thing?
Yeah. Well, they take a nuanced perspective. They acknowledge that, yeah, AI and automation, they're going to displace some jobs,
Okay, that's fair.
especially those that involve, tasks that are repetitive or manual.
Right.
But they also say that these technologies are going to create new opportunities,
Okay, interesting.
particularly in areas where you need creativity, where you need problem solving, where you need emotional intelligence, those things that are uniquely human.
So it's not just robots versus humans.
Yeah.
It's more about figuring out how to work together.
How to collaborate.
Right, how to collaborate,
Yeah.
leveraging the strengths of each.
Right. Using AI and automation as tools
Tools, okay.
that can help us, they can augment our skills
Right.
and free us up to focus on things that require human ingenuity, human empathy.
So instead of replacing us, they're changing what we do,
Exactly.
shifting the focus.
Shifting the focus.
Okay, so how does that actually work in the real world? Give me some concrete examples.
Okay, so let's take healthcare.
Right.
AI is already being used to, analyze medical images,
Uh-huh.
diagnose diseases,
Really?
even personalized treatment plans.
Wow.
But that doesn't mean that doctors and nurses are out of a job.
Right, it's not replacing them.
No, it's freeing up their time
Okay.
so they can focus on things like patient communication, emotional support, ethical decision-making, those really complex things.
So the things that require a human touch.
Exactly, where empathy is crucial.
Empathy, yeah.
Where you need critical thinking skills,
Yeah.
complex problem solving.
And that pattern, does that show up in other industries too?
It does, yeah. Like manufacturing, for example. You've got robots that are handling the dangerous tasks,
Yeah.
the repetitive ones,
Okay.
and that allows the human workers to focus on things like quality control, process optimization, innovation.
Right, the higher level thinking.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not so much job replacement, it's job transformation,
Transformation, yeah.
creating opportunities for humans to do what we do best.
And that brings us back to upskilling and reskilling.
Right, full circle.
Because to thrive in this new world of work, we need to develop those skills that complement AI and automation.
Not compete with them.
Not compete, complement. It's about becoming masters of our own, human potential.
Okay, I like that. But let's switch gears again. Let's talk money. Let's talk wages. Because, is all this change going to affect how much we earn?
It will, definitely. And the report, it gives us some really interesting insights into how wages might evolve over the next few years.
Okay, so tell me more. What's the scoop on wages?
Well, one key finding is that while wages overall are expected to go up, the gains are not going to be evenly distributed.
Okay, so a wage gap, basically.
Yeah, a widening wage gap.
So who's going to benefit the most from this? And who's at risk of being left behind?
Well, one of the big drivers of wage growth is the demand for specialized skills,
Makes sense.
especially in, technology, data analysis, green innovation.
Right, all the hot areas.
And as companies compete for this top talent, they're willing to pay more to attract and retain them.
So those with the specialized skills, the in-demand skills,
Yeah.
they're going to see their wages go up.
Exactly.
But what about everyone else?
Well, that's where the inequality comes in.
Yeah.
Those workers in lower skill jobs or those in industries that are, kind of fading away, they might not see the same wage gains, and some of them might even lose their jobs as automation keeps, displacing those routine tasks.
Right. That's a big concern.
It is. And this is why those public policy recommendations are so important. Investing in those reskilling programs.
Right, yeah.
Strengthening social safety nets, promoting, more equitable access to education and training.
So it's about supporting those who are who are vulnerable.
Ex-
Okay, so it's not just about rewarding the people who already have those skills. It's about helping everyone adapt and keep up.
Yeah, it's about creating a system where everyone has a chance to benefit from this new economy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's get even more specific. How are these wage trends likely to play out in different regions and industries? Does it go into that level of detail?
It does, yeah. So for example, in regions with really fast-growing economies, high demand for skilled labor, like in Southeast Asia, parts of Africa,
Okay.
we're likely to see wages go up significantly across a whole range of industries. And this is driven by things like, rising productivity,
Makes sense.
increased foreign investment,
Right.
a growing middle
So
class.
those regions are kind of in the sweet spot right now,
Yeah, you could say that.
economically speaking.
But even within those regions, there'll be variation.
Okay.
Depending on the specific industry, the level of skill that's needed, like, jobs in tech, finance, professional services, they're probably going to command higher wages than, say, agriculture or manufacturing.
Right, that makes sense. What about regions with more mature economies, slower growth, like Europe or North America? What's happening with wages there?
Well, it's more complex in those regions. Overall wage growth might be slower,
Okay.
but there will still be pockets of strong demand, places where wages are increasing, especially for those with those sought-after
Right.
skills.
So even those slower growth places, there are still opportunities,
Absolutely.
but you need to have those in-demand skills. You need to be in the right sector.
Exactly. And it really highlights, how important lifelong learning and adaptability are.
Yeah.
Workers who are willing to invest in their skills, embrace new opportunities, they're going to be in a much better position to navigate these
Have to
changes.
thrive, yeah.
To thrive, exactly.
Okay, that's a really important message. But let's be honest. Wages, they're only one part of the equation when it comes to job satisfaction.
Right.
What about things like uh, work-life balance, job security, the overall meaning and purpose of work? How are those things likely to change in the future?
Those are all important questions,
Yeah?
and the report does touch on some of them.
Okay.
They highlight, for example, the growing importance of flexible work arrangements.
Oh, interesting.
As technology allows more and more people to work remotely or on non-traditional schedules,
That could be good for work-life balance.
it could be great, giving people more flexibility to integrate their work and personal lives.
Yeah. I mean, the traditional 9 to 5 office job, it's kind of becoming a thing of the past.
It is.
More and more people are embracing these flexible arrangements. But what about job security? Because in a world where, technology is changing so rapidly, automation's on the rise,
Yeah.
how can people feel confident about their long-term career prospects?
Well, that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And it's something that a lot of workers are worried about.
Yeah.
And the truth is, job security, as we knew it, yeah, it's probably not coming back.
Oh.
But in this fast-paced world, the key to navigating that uncertainty, it's not about holding on to a single job.
Okay.
It's about developing skills that are portable, that you can take with you,
Right.
and a mindset of adaptability.
So being flexible, being willing to change.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not about like clinging to the past.
No.
It's about becoming a master navigator in this ever-changing, work landscape.
Precisely. Being able to adapt to new challenges, acquire new skills, and just pivot to new opportunities as they come up.
Yeah, being agile, I guess. Okay, that's a more optimistic way of looking at job security.
It is.
It's about taking control
Mhm.
rather than, just kind of waiting to see what happens.
Exactly, yeah. But what about the meaning of work, the purpose of work?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. In a world where AI is taking over a lot of those routine tasks,
Yeah.
how do people find fulfillment? How do they find purpose in their jobs?
That's a really deep question.
It is a big one.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're all grappling with, as machines become more and more capable. It's like we're being forced to confront our own humanity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's no longer enough to just perform a task. We need to find that deeper meaning.
We need that why.
Yeah, the why. And this is where I think the report offers some really valuable guidance. It highlights these human-centered skills like empathy, creativity, critical thinking, problem solving.
Right, all those things we've been talking about.
Those are the things that differentiate us from machines,
That make us human.
that make us human, and they allow us to contribute to the world in a way that matters.
So it's about finding that intersection
Mm.
between, what we're good at as humans. Yeah.
And what the world needs.
Yeah.
Using our skills, our talents to to solve problems, to create value.
To make a difference.
Yeah, to make a difference.
Yeah.
And that might mean working in fields that, address social challenges or environmental challenges. Maybe it means using technology to create positive change.
Or even just finding ways to bring more humanity into our everyday interactions at work.
Yeah, just being more human with each other.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a really inspiring perspective. So it's not just about adapting to the future of work.
No.
It's about shaping it, to reflect what we care about.
Exactly. And I think that's where the real opportunity is. As we navigate all this uncertainty, we have a chance to create a world of work that's not just prosperous, but also fulfilling, equitable, and sustainable.
That's a great vision.
It is.
But before we get too carried away with all the big ideas, let's bring it back down to earth for a minute and talk about some of the practical challenges. How do we actually navigate this transition to the future of work?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is just keeping up.
Yeah, keeping up with the pace of change.
The pace of change, exactly. Technology is evolving at an incredible rate. New industries, new jobs, they're popping up all the time. And it can feel really overwhelming.
It does, yeah. You feel like you're constantly playing catch up.
Yeah, and so how do you avoid that? How do you stay relevant in a world that's changing so fast?
Right.
Well, I think it comes back to that mindset of continuous learning.
Right.
Being willing to experiment, to embrace new challenges, being curious.
Yeah.
Staying informed about those emerging trends.
Right. So it's not about mastering one skill set and then you're good to go.
No, it's about being a lifelong learner.
Right. Always learning, always adapting.
And realizing that learning doesn't just happen in a classroom or through a formal training program.
Oh, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. You can learn from online courses, from industry events, from mentors, from just, observing and interacting with people in your field.
So it's about creating a culture of learning.
A culture of learning, yeah.
Both within yourself and within your workplace.
Exactly. And that's where I think companies have a really important role to play. They need to invest in their employees' development. They need to give people opportunities for continuous learning.
And encourage it.
And encourage it, yeah. And create a culture where innovation and adaptability are celebrated.
Okay, but let's be real. Not every company is on board with this.
Right.
Some companies are more progressive than others when it comes to embracing the future of work.
Absolutely.
So how can individuals advocate for themselves? How can they create the kind of work environment that they want?
That's a great question, and it's something that's becoming more and more important.
Yeah.
Because workers have more options now.
Yeah, they do.
They have more power to shape their careers. And one strategy is to be proactive.
Okay.
Don't wait for your employer to offer you training or a promotion, Take the initiative to figure out where your skills gaps are, research those learning opportunities, and then propose new projects, new initiatives that align with your interests, your aspirations.
So it's about taking control.
Taking control, yeah.
Being the architect of your own future.
Yeah. Don't wait for someone to tell you what to do.
Right, exactly. And recognizing that we have more agency than we sometimes think.
We do.
We can choose to work for companies that align with our values.
Yeah.
We can find mentors who can guide us. We can build networks that provide support and inspiration. We can even create our own opportunities.
Absolutely.
Through entrepreneurship, through freelancing, through, all sorts of things.
There are so many possibilities.
Yeah, it's really empowering. So it's not about, the future of work being this thing that's going to happen to us. It's something that we're creating.
We're shaping it with our choices.
With our choices, our actions, our policies.
Exactly.
And by embracing a growth mindset.
Yeah.
By cultivating those human-centered skills and by advocating for ourselves and our communities.
We can create a future of work that's not just prosperous, but also meaningful and equitable and sustainable.
That's a great message.
It is.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but I want to leave you with one final thought. The report, it paints this really, vivid picture of the future, but it's complicated.
It is.
Lots of moving parts. So it's clear that to navigate all of this, you're going to need to be tech savvy, you're going to need to be adaptable, and you're going to have to, commit to that whole lifelong learning thing.
Lifelong learning is key.
It is. But beyond all the data, beyond all the predictions, I'm curious, is there Is there one thing from this report that really stood out to you? Something that maybe, might be helpful for you as you navigate your own career?
Well, one thing that really struck me was they talk about the wage premium that comes with certain skills and experience levels.
Oh, interesting.
And they actually use data from ADP research to analyze wages in the U.S.
Okay.
And they break down jobs into these zones, ranging from entry level all the way up to, highly specialized roles.
Oh, that's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah, and what they found is that workers in those higher job zones, the ones that require a lot of training, a lot of experience, they earn significantly more.
Way more. Okay, so it's not just about having a job.
No,
It's about strategically developing skills that are going to lead to higher earning potential down the road.
it's like investing in yourself.
Investing in your human capital.
Yeah. The more specialized your skills are, the more in demand they are, the more leverage you have.
You're on the driver's seat.
You're in the driver's seat. But here's the thing. The report also highlights those human-centered skills that we've been talking about.
Right, right.
Communication, collaboration, critical thinking, adaptability, all of that.
So even if you're not, a data scientist or an AI engineer, you can still boost your earning potential
Absolutely.
by honing those skills that are uniquely human.
The things that are hard to automate.
Right, exactly. And
And
those skills, they tend to be more transferable, right?
they do, yeah. You can take them with you from job to job, from industry to industry.
So it's about finding that balance.
Finding the sweet spot.
The sweet spot. So you need the technical skills,
Yeah.
but you also need that strong foundation of human-centered skills
To really succeed in the long run.
to be well-rounded, I guess.
Yeah.
It's also like having a diverse portfolio of skills.
Yeah, a mix of everything.
A mix of, high-demand technical expertise and then those essential human qualities.
And becoming more and more valuable.
In this world that's, becoming more and more dominated by tech.
Right.
But, let's be realistic. Not everyone is going to benefit from all of this.
Right.
Some people might lose their jobs to automation.
Yeah.
Some might find that their skills are becoming obsolete.
Yeah.
So what is the report? What does it suggest for those folks?
Well, the report, it acknowledges that this transition is going to be tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's going to be rough.
And that some workers are going to, face job losses. They might see their wages stagnate. And this is where those public policy recommendations we talked about, they become really crucial.
Okay.
Investing in reskilling programs, making
Yeah.
sure that social safety nets are strong,
Uh-huh.
promoting access to education and training, making sure it's equitable.
So it's not just about, celebrating all the cool new innovations and the potential for growth.
Right.
We also need to be thinking about the people who might be left behind
Yeah, we need to be mindful of that.
and make sure that everyone has a chance to adapt and thrive.
It's about creating a future of work that's not just prosperous, it's inclusive,
Inclusive.
where
Yeah.
everyone has a chance to succeed.
Okay, so we've talked about global trends, we've talked about regional nuances, industry shifts, all the upskilling, how wages are changing. It's a lot. This report is packed with information. But as we wrap up, if you had to pick one key takeaway, what would it be?
For me, it's the reminder that the future of work it's not set in stone.
Okay.
It's something that we are creating.
We're shaping it.
We're shaping it with our choices, with our actions, with our policies.
So it's not about, passively waiting to see what's going to happen.
No, it's about taking control.
It's about being proactive.
It's about embracing that growth mindset
Right. Always learning, always growing.
and advocating for a future that works for everyone.
Yeah, that benefits everyone. I love that. It's
What-
not just about, adapting to the future.
Oh.
It's about shaping it
Shaping it.
to reflect our values.
Yeah.
It's realizing that we have power even with all this uncertainty.
Absolutely.
We can make choices.
Yeah.
We can make a difference.
I can be the architect
We can be the architects.
of our own careers and of a future of work that's both prosperous and equitable.
That's a great way to put it. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report for 2025. We hope you found it insightful and more importantly, that you found it empowering. Because remember, the future isn't a fixed destination. It's a journey. And we're all on it together. So be bold, be curious, and be the architects of your own fulfilling career journey. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.